So, you want to learn how it's like to be an internet artist, huh? Well, buckle up because it's not as easy as you think it is. So this is a video I've been thinking about doing for a while now because I know there are some people who would love to put their work online but have no idea on where to start. Drawing and artwork is no exception to that rule. Whether you're doing it as a stress reliever, to gain a quick buck, practice storytelling, or just doing it for fun in general. Plus there's also that one dumb and borderline retarded ideology that's still going around with certain special people when it comes to making art, claiming such things as like, oh, it's so easy, it should be free for everyone. Well, newsflash, believe it or not, it's actually a very uncertain job on whether you're almost never guaranteed payment, and it usually requires a lot of time and energy to make that awesome art piece of your favorite characters in provocative situations. Artists are generally underappreciated when it comes to media, not only because they sometimes get paid less when it comes to the project they're involved in, unless they made the art themselves, so they usually resort to charging a lot of money for their work, which usually makes a lot of consumers unhappy at best and frustrated at worst. If you're one of those people that can't seem to find any fair-paying artists, or you're a creative person with generally nothing better to do than to work on your skills, this vid is not only to help you learn how to become good at art, but also to share how the process is really done. Most of the stuff I will be covering will also give some pointers here and there with things that I went through after 16 years and counting of my experience. Keep in mind that the things that I've experienced are my own, and they probably won't happen to you as well, since everybody goes through their journey in different ways. So remember that the stuff that I went through are just meant to be a rough insight on what to do and what not to do. Also, one more thing. Making art is not just about drawing great ideas that you come up with, but it's also about practicing your craft and the amount of discipline that you go through. You will be learning from your mistakes as you get better. So with that out of the way, here's my personal guide on what it takes to be an internet artist. So the very first thing, if you ever want to learn how to draw, to quote a very specific old meme, is to just do it. Like any other skill, it requires a lot of practice to master, and anyone can do it if they have the discipline, patience, and passion for it. Just start with the basics when you start out, because once you later begin to put in some good old effort, you eventually start to catch on various different techniques such as utilizing shapes, depth perception, color theory, as well as shading and lighting. Also, use references. Want to draw specific characters? Look up concept art from their series. Want to know how to do expressions? Check out other artists' various takes via memes. Want to know how to make good poses? Find pictures of people or get an art model. References are there to help you when you don't know the image that you're going for. The only time you would have to use your memory is when you have a full grasp of what the character looks like and you have at least drawn them multiple times already. Speaking of multiple times, always make sure to draw something at least once a day. Do some warm-up exercises that should take no longer than 2 minutes at least. Also take the time to practice drawing something that's normally out of your comfort zone, whether it be an object, anatomy part, scenery, or a certain drawing technique that you struggle with and wish to improve on. And the more times that you work on it, then you start to catch on the idea on how it looks naturally. When you finally get all the techniques down in your brain, which will take time mind you, your art will start to be looking better in no time. Everything that you've come to learn will greatly affect the quality of your art and eat up a good amount of your time based on the amount of effort. Some high quality pieces could take up around 3 days to a full week, but you don't want to always push towards perfection. Just find the right certain amount of hours to work on your piece and draw it until you eventually start to feel some pain in your wrist. You don't necessarily have to keep drawing until it happens, but normally your body will tell you when to stop. Otherwise, you'll likely suffer from the wonderful thing that is carpal tunnel syndrome. And no, I don't care if the piece that you're making is on a deadline. Learn to manage your time better and take a goddamn break! Now comes a big question. Do you need a college degree to make the art projects you wish to make? No, it's not a requirement whatsoever. Unless you're planning to work with a company of sorts, they only care about what your portfolio has to offer and not where you got your degree from. Everything you really need to know in order to hone your skills can be pretty much found online on the internet as well as books. For books, many would recommend getting into Andrew Loomis, Scott Robertson, Sarah Simblett, as well as those that dedicate themselves to drawing the figure. Because making sure your anatomy is correct is the key to looking more pro. Gesture is just as important as well, as you want to make sure the characters that you're drawing have more life to them, and to not have your poses be looking as stiff as a chalkboard. Also, don't pull a young Carly and get one of those how to draw anime books that you usually find at your local bookstore. While they do provide you a basic understanding on how the style is usually done, it gravitates you away from the ideal images that you wish to make. Simply put, you gotta know the rules of art before you plan on breaking them. Do you have a particular favorite internet artist? Do they have a social media platform or a YouTube? Because there might be a high chance that they also provide some tutorials on how they make their art in their own ways. They would even give out pointers and various tips on how to use the art program of your choosing, if you're planning on doing digital work, or the right coloring techniques and tools if you're going for traditional instead. This option can be very useful if you're planning to go for a specific style. Speaking of which, If you don't have a clear idea on what your art style should look like, the trick to this is to not even worry or think about it in the slightest. Over time, an artist's art style will not only naturally grow and improve, but also start to look completely different than how they started a decade ago. This very thing is called art evolution. Not only will your art start to change after copious amounts of time and effort, but there's also a chance of it becoming a certain way based on the various things that you're into. Yeah, all those particular mediums that you like, whether it be your favorite video games, movies, TV shows, and whatnot, those things actually help shape the style you're going for. Having an open mind and broadening your horizons is also the key to when it comes to these sort of things, as the more stuff that you experience over time, the stronger your visual library will be. You'll then start to catch on how various styles are made and use them to your advantage. Of course, this doesn't mean that you have to learn every single style in existence and become a jack of all trades, master of nothing, but drawing certain styles that you know you can pull off will easily give your portfolio some variety and a bigger chance of getting possibly hired by someone. There is the common pitfall that most starting artists fall into when they're young and naive, and they usually limit themselves to the small things that they're into. This was a case for me for when I first started, as I had very specific tastes and didn't like most of the things my friends were into at the time. As I got older though, not only did I begin to like some of the various things I missed out on, but they also introduced me to other talented artists, whether big or small, that I've come to enjoy today. I mean, just look at this compared to now. You already can't believe that these were both done by me, can ya? Like I said before, broadening your horizons is key, so don't be afraid to step out of your bubble and try out some new things that could possibly help you out. Now comes the point where you decide for yourself, are you willing to take the bull by the horns and steel yourself to become a great artist? Then it's time to decide on why you want to do art in the first place. Many artists have various reasons for why they like to draw. Some do it because it's fun, some do it as a type of coping mechanism, and others want to turn it into a full-time job. There's obviously a big divide when it comes to those that just want to make stuff because they want to, versus making them for money. When making stuff for fun, you can do whatever the hell you want! Make that OTP you always liked. Make awesome action scenes that you wish had happened in your favorite show. Whatever comes to your mind, you go and make those things you want a reality. Drawing as a hobby is not only a wish fulfillment making machine, but it also produces dopamine, which helps to make you more confident and feel more better about yourself. The other chances you'd be doing art as a hobby is usually out of pure kindness. Hell, maybe you could be bored one day and decide to show appreciation to someone you admire, or just want to cheer a friend up by making a little gift for them. Requests are also an idea if you're feeling super generous and need some new things to draw altogether. If people generally like your work and they want to see your take on certain characters, whether canon or original, that alone shows you how much you're worth people's time. This route of art creation is not very common, so just keep it in mind before you turn yourself into a charity artist. The only difference from when it comes to doing art as a job is that, well, you treat it like an actual job. But the cool benefits that come from it is that you are your own boss, which means you have to hold yourself accountable for how long and hard you want to work on your craft. Just make sure the customer knows what they're getting themselves into before they plan to buy an art piece from you. More on that later. Anyway, whether you're doing art as a hobby or not, an internet artist has their entire portfolio on display for everyone to see, regardless of which path you choose. Which leads to this next topic. As your portfolio begins to expand, you'll then start to gain a certain audience depending on the art that you make. Some might like the fan art that you draw, some may like the original stuff that you come up with. The cool, the cute, the sexy, the scary, the unique. It's all the matter of what people really like about your art. When you begin to have a full grasp on what your art is like, it might as well be considered your theme at this point, as drawing a theme not only makes you stand out, but helps you get noticed more. Just know, however, that you can't always make a living drawing the things from that one particular series that you're obsessing over, because as over time, people will start to find it repetitive and boring. Going back to my broadening your horizons point, it's always best to have a variety when it comes to the stuff that you're into. There may be cases where some people only like one specific theme as opposed to the other stuff that you make, as people just have different preferences, and that's okay. After all, you can't cater your artwork to everybody in the world, just the ones who enjoy you for being you. People want to pay attention to you because they want to see more of your work being made. So don't be upset if some of them unfollow you because you decide to switch to a different series one day. A few other things I should have mentioned earlier is that you'll need to have a platform and where you want to post your work. Maybe you could choose to go professional and host them on your own personal website where everyone can find you. This is personally the safest avenue to go with in case of a mainstream platform wants to censor you or because of any stupid reason under the sun. Or, if you're one of those who are too brain dead to understand coding, the very least you could do is have a presence on social media sites that help promote artists. Live streaming your art is also a very good option too, if you want to be like the cool and hip artists that are trending out there. While it may seem like a great idea to push yourself on a multitude of social platforms all at once, having too many can be extremely overwhelming and time-consuming. The recommended amount of socials a small artist should have is at least 3 for art sharing and at least 1 or 2 streaming sites. No more, no less. trust me, it's a better dosage than the mess that I'm dealing with. Like every other creative endeavor that happens in the world, the critics will eventually come by to throw in their 2 cents. Art critics will appear when they see potential in your work and they generally want to see you improve. They won't appear onto your feed when you're just starting out, as they normally only deal with slightly bigger artists. Most of the time. But they're around if you're ever seeking to improve your craft and just need some considerate feedback. Criticism is usually very important, as it helps you give an insight to what your audience wants, as well as give you pointers to help you get more commissions. Of course, there will be some happenstance occasions where they randomly critique you out of nowhere, even when you don't expect it. This is par for the course with criticism. You may not want to hear it at certain points, but no matter what the time or place, criticism is always a welcome necessity if you want to improve. But of course, there will be some occasional asshats that have standards. If there's a critic in your comment section claiming that they want you to make your piece a certain way to fit their own needs and not yours, there are a few ways that you could deal with this. Option 1 is to always make sure to respond with valid reasoning and respect, and if they really want to help you, then they will remind you of your strengths rather than constantly focusing on your weaknesses. As I said before, you can't cater your art to everybody in the world, and if they just don't happen to agree with your views, then you can use option number 2. Hit the mute or block button, and just ignore them. What I'm trying to get here is, don't be a whiny bitch and take all forms of criticism as a personal attack on you. And just because they might have said something mean or sounded a bit too harsh, it doesn't mean they're trying to bring you down. Honest criticism is sometimes hard to accept, but this is the price everyone pays when they allow their work to be put on the internet public square display for all to see.
When someone works hard on something, you have to respect it. I worked very hard on this cookie, and I spent all day doing it, and it's all f***ed up, and I hate that you did.
Also, don't be afraid to ask for help when you really need it. Artists generally want to support one another as we take on various challenges together. After all, the worst art critic to ever face on your creative journey is your own self. Behind those that just hate your work or just want to troll you, nobody needs permission to tell you that you suck. You're going to be facing a lot of ups and downs like any other person in life, but just know that you're never alone, as others could be going through the same spiel as you. Now on to the part where it's time to think of whether you can make this into a job. Once you think your work is good enough that you want it to be a profession, the best way to go about it is by doing commissions. You want to make sure your price chart is about as fair as the amount of time, effort, and quality that you put into your pieces. Such examples could include like making a sketch for about $5 to $10 versus a fully detailed piece for about like $55 to $100. And for the love of God, make sure the customer pays first before you start or so much as finish the piece. Otherwise you'll end up feeling like you've just been scammed or just wasted your time. It happened to me once because I was dumb, and on top of it all it was done for a friend, which made it feel worse. There is also of course the dreaded I'll pay you with exposure kinds of people as well. I don't think I have to tell you to not accept these requests. If they want art from you, then you better make sure they give you the goddamn money. Be sure to also provide the commissioner some previews of the progress when you can. Whether it's to let them know how far you've gotten, or if you want them to change specific things on the piece to make it look better. There of course will also be certain individuals that will require you to have it done by a certain due date, which most of the time can be very stressful for those starting out. If you think you can manage to make a highly detailed piece within a few days or a week, then you either must be really good at timing or you're just incredibly dumb, as good art takes a whole lot of time to look nice. So bottom line is, only accept due dates when you know that you can pull them off. If the commissioner is starting to get too impatient for their piece to be done, then be sure to give reasoning as to why it's taking so long on your end. If they can't seem to grasp the idea and it just become plain rude afterwards, don't be afraid to cancel the commission altogether, because nobody wants to make things for impatient asshats. The same can be applied to DM creepers who are looking to get something from you, which can turn into some forms of harassment if you're not too careful. Keep in mind though that taking commissions is not for everyone, so only open to the idea when you're fully confident that you can make a profit. Even if there are some people that say that you should open and you don't really feel like you're up for it, don't open until you are ready. This next topic was originally something I wanted to put in the commissions tab, but feel like it deserved its own category for how important it is. Your mental health is extremely worth keeping in check when it comes to the things that you do, and if you begin to see so much as a dent in your performance, then it's time to start reflecting, as it can really affect everything else. Your sanity is important for any of the pieces that you make altogether. You always want to make sure that you're at your best when you're drawing, as you want it to look good as possible. As many artists know, if you end up doing something on a consistent basis, you'll eventually end up dealing with burnout. And that's not fun in the slightest. Just like I said in my getting started category, don't feel bad about taking breaks every once in a while. To avoid mentally straining yourself, either take time to draw something that you enjoy, or try doing some other hobbies that don't involve art. Now, unless you're one of those venting artists that like to draw based on emotion, heed this warning. Don't go asking for empathy and brownie points because you feel like crap. Nobody likes to see someone sad and angry all the time. It's one thing to tell your audience how you're feeling, but it's another to make others feel miserable. Just be truthful, but not pitiful. So that's my guide on what being an internet artist is actually like. I tried to keep everything as condensed as possible, while at the same time trying to make sure my points at least made some sense. If any of you watching are ever thinking of taking up art, hopefully this gave you some simple pointers for starting out. If I ever miss anything important, or if you have any concerns or questions you'd like me to go over, I'll answer them in the comments below. This is my first art commentary, so if any of you liked it and want me to go over more of these kind of videos, then feel free to also share some topics you'd like me to cover for the next one. Other than that, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, and if you want to see more vids like this, then feel free to sub to the channel, as well as ringing that bell icon to be notified for my next upload. I also have my various social media that you can follow via the description, and if you really want to help out the channel, consider donating to my Patreon and such that are also in the description. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in whatever I come up with next.
Bye-bye.